Okay, so I'm going to do a brief introduction for who we have as speakers today, and then I'll let them go through. We're going to do this as kind of a one question at a time. They'll each get to speak and share about their programs, and then we'll go to the next question or topic. And in terms of volunteers, you can go ahead and ask questions throughout, or we'll try and save some time at the end as well if you have questions. Or you can email me questions later and I can get you some answers as well. So today we're lucky to have folks from DePaul Community Resources, the independent living program there. We have Anna Elzy, independent living supervisor, and Vonnie Chen, independent living specialist. So glad to have you both. We also have Children's Home Society My Path Forward with Christina Farrar, the admissions and outreach specialist. We have Virginia Home for Boys and Girls, Christopher Campbell. He's the Director of Advocacy and Program Advancement. And we have UMFS. We have Brian Chiswick, Vice President, Residential Services, the Child and Family Healing Center. So if I said anything wrong, feel free when it's your turn to jump in and tell a little more about yourself or anything like that as well. So the first topic that we're going to discuss is just kind of the broad, big picture. What key information should volunteers know about you or your programs? That could be the levels and phases, the general purpose, the types of programs, whatever you feel is important for volunteers to know about where you work and your role. So I don't know if we want to start with the way I introduced you. Maybe start with DePaul to go first.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. It's so good to meet you all. Again, I'm Anna Elzy, and I'm the Independent Living Supervisor of the Independent Living Program for DePaul Community Resources here in Charlottesville. I know that's a mouthful, but very basically, we provide independent living to our young people who are still seeking the support from Department of Social Services here in this area. And that could be any locality from Albemarle County DSS to Charlottesville to Shenandoah Valley, etc. We are a program that provides case management, and we provide unique and specialized services to all of our young adults in our program. So I guess what I would love to share is I want to start by saying that we're the type of organization that doesn't just provide housing. We're the type of organization that provides opportunities that allow our young adults to not only learn those independent living skills like cooking, budgeting, managing their own spaces, but also to secure and maintain their own housing, developing and practicing all those life skills, and pretty important as well, making connections with caring and trusting adults like yourselves. So that's one of the reasons why we're here today, is because we partner frequently with CASA Bridges and our CASA Volunteers. And we're extraordinarily lucky to have every trusted adult on a young person's team. It truly makes a difference. I guess one of the other things about our agency is that we have young people who enter our program. They come in at what's called an assessment level. And so that basically allows us to determine what their needs are, what their strengths are, and what they're coming to us with what kind of goals they hope to achieve as part of our program, whether that's purchasing their first car, saving up for that down payment on their first apartment of their own, or whether that's simply learning how to live like a competent, successful adult, managing a career, pursuing further education, whatever that looks like, that's what we're here for. A lot of the time, it's also navigating hard emotions. A lot of our young people come from really hard places. So we end up being more than just a case manager or a skill builder like Vonnie here. We also end up being a listening ear. And I think that's where our work becomes extremely meaningful. What else can I think of? I think that's kind of the rundown of our program. But I guess I should also note that our program offers independent living places to young adults between the ages of 18 and 21. So a lot of the time we have 17-year-olds that are really looking for a place to go. And while we can't legally offer them a place in our program, what we can do is offer tours that are available to interested parties, show them what our organization is all about, how we run things, what their apartments might look like, all that kind of thing. A lot of information. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right. Leah, do you want me to just move right through onto education or kind of give other folks a chance to speak to their programs as well?
So I think I'm just going with topics and we'll give everybody
Sure.
this topic and then we'll go to the next one if that's okay.
Sounds perfect.
And I
Yeah.
didn't know if did Bonnie have anything to add for
Yeah, I just want to add that we really focus on keeping our caseloads very small. So a lot of attention goes to each individual in the program. We focus a lot on open communication with the whole team. So whether it's legal guardian, CASA workers, CASA bridges, coaches, there's a lot of communication between each team member to really keep each other in the loop. And a lot of care goes into each individual.
Yeah, good point. And let's go to Christina Farrar with My Path Forward.
Hey everyone. So I'm the admissions and outreach specialist with My Path Forward. So My Path Forward is an independent living program with Children's Home Society of Virginia. And so our independent living program is located in North Chesterfield of Richmond. And we provide housing, wraparound supports to youth ages 17 through 21. So I know Anna said they don't take them at 18, at 17. We take them at 17 case by case basis. They have to show that they are ready for independent living because with a lot of freedom comes a lot of responsibility. And so we conduct panel interviews with all of our youth before they are accepted into our program. And that is just to see exactly where they're at, where they're at mentally, and see if our program is a good fit for them. And so just like Anna, our program provides wraparound services, we provide trauma-informed wraparound services, and therapy is a requirement for our program. So any youth that comes into our program has to be enrolled in therapy. They can already have a therapist. If they don't, we contract them with one of the therapists that we work with. And they have sort of like a period where they have no visitation, like 30 to 60 days. They have no family and no friends that come and see them. And that's because we want to get them acclimated to our program. My Path Forward is a very intense program. And when I say intense, I mean, within the first 30 days, it's a lot of goals that we have set upon them that we're looking for them to accomplish. If they're not working, if they're in school full-time, they have to be working part-time, they have to be in therapy, they have to still meet with their case manager. So it's a lot that goes into My Path Forward. And not only do we provide our IL program, we also have a wraparound program, which is our legacy program, which serves youth 18 through 25. We provide housing for them as well. And that's just for youth who are not in DSS custody, but have still had some type of foster care experience. And so that means if they were 2 months and they were in the foster care system, they qualify. And so they're able to stay into that program up to 2 years. And that is because we know a lot of youth that transition out of our IL at 21, a lot of them transition over to our legacy program because we know at 21, they're just not ready. And so we provide that extra help if they do pursue to go to college while they're in our program. If they're in our legacy program, they're able to stay in that legacy program longer than the 2-year period. They're able to stay in that legacy program until they finish that degree.
I am learning new things as well. So
Yeah.
that's good to know. And then Virginia Home for Boys and Girls.
Hey, everybody. So in reference to just a couple of things to back up a second. So there are the law that allows young people to remain in foster care, right? It's called Fostering Futures, right? 18 to 21. which first came to us probably about 5 years ago now as a budget amendment and not a law, right? And so a lot of us in this room fought to make sure that that was codified and went through, right, at the General Assembly. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with those processes. And so now we have a group of people, 18 to 21, who are still in foster care and still quite possibly falling off that proverbial cliff if not tended to. It's really pivotal. A lot of these kids have been in multiple foster homes. They've been in residential treatment facilities. They've been in group homes. And they're just not as, I have 3 children of my own. And my own children, I was not allowed, remotely ready to be out on my own at 17, 18, 19, 21, right, alone. And to think that I worked with kids at 21 is crazy. But when you look at the numbers, there's probably about 800 young people who are eligible for ILA in Virginia right now. And that number is growing as the number of foster care, that bell curve is going up, like 16, 17-year-olds. And so what we're looking at next year, and it didn't go through this year, is it's probably extending fostering futures to the age of 23. There was no money for it in the General Assembly this year, but it is something that people are pushing for in the next years. Because as Christine was talking about, and I'll talk about, is that we have programs now to the age of 25 for homelessness. And a lot of those young people were either in foster care or in kinship care of some sort, right? And so we know one of the precursors to homelessness as older is foster care, which is sad. But we know that to be true. And so we also know that pregnant at a very young age, by the way, not a negative thing necessarily, I'm not saying that, but not tethered to somebody, uneducated, all those kind of things. In prisons, drug abuse, trafficked, all of those things come out of that space. And so we really want to be mindful of that. There's only about 8 of us that are doing independent living in the state. And so of that 800 eligible. And so there is, I say that there is space, there is room for that to grow, and hopefully through advocacy, those groups can grow. We do meet in Richmond as a central region of advocacy of ILAs, and I invite any of the other ILAs here who don't, DePaul, you, to come and be part of that anytime. It's actually on Brian's campus at UMFS. And all the people from the state, VDSS, Lethia, and Monica, and all those people come to that. So please come. And visitors as well, if you want to learn more about that. So we do have 18 to 21-year-olds on our campus. They're in townhomes and ranchers and tri-levels right on our campus on Broad Street. We're more of a protected field. We call it a therapeutic neighborhood. It's 35 acres. We have a pool. We have tennis courts. We have ball fields. We have a private day school for kindergarten through senior year. We're very close to private, community colleges, where those young people can get involved with Great Expectations, which is the state's advocacy when it comes to college for those young people. If you're not connected with them, I implore you to get involved with those people at those community colleges to get our young people in college, because the graduation rates of our young people is dismal. And that's vocation as well, by the way. I hope my son becomes, or my daughter becomes, a plumber, because that's the way to go right now. So we do have young people on our campus that are that age. We also have, and we work with the Greater Richmond Continuum of Care, which is homelessness. And so when one of those lead agencies goes after a grant with homelessness, we're then privy to that by being part of the continuum of care. And so Homeward was awarded a $4.5 million Youth Development Project Award. And so now we have young people on our campus that are 18 through 25 for 6 months up to 2 years. That is housing, by the way. That's housing first. That is the mantra when it comes to housing, is housing first, and then you go after everything else afterwards, right? Because you can't get a job without an ID. You can't get an ID without an address. And so all that stuff trickles down, right? And I'm preaching to the choir, I know that, but that's the truth. That's the reality. So we have that on our campus. We also have a clinic on our campus. We are all child welfare. We have group homes on our campus that are from 11 through 17, and those are child welfare homes. They're not Medicaid or Medicaid level of care. There's no certificate of need. They're paid for out of local funds through CSA and FAPT. Those are young people who are perhaps have been in foster homes a great deal, and they're just disenfranchised with that whole system, and so they choose not to go into TFC. Kids stepping down from longer term levels of care, higher levels of care. I've stepped kids down from Brian's program numerous times over the years, as well as other residentials, the highest level of care. But again, we're FAPT approved and CSA funded. So DSS dollars, not Medicaid or insurances. And in that way, we remain truly child welfare. And it's not a prescription that's given to us. So we work with the locality and the family to meet the child's needs. If that means psychotherapy, it means psychotherapy. If it means psychoed, it means psychoed. Those are two different things, very different things. And so because we're on a campus, which makes us a little different in our ILA, every one of us is a little bit different, by the way, and every one of them has their strengths. By far, I refer to all other ILA programs regularly. We are able to take a young person who's might have been in residential for a long time because we're campus and because it feels like a residential in a lot of respects, but it's an open, unlocked, right off Broad. Kids who are in detention centers, one of the young people who just left us had an IQ of 65. And for those of you who don't know, 70 is kind of the cutoff for borderline intellectual disability. And so we were able to take a young person who was intellectually disability on the spectrum of autism. And within 2 years, that person had their own lease on their own apartment, right? It's crazy. It gives me chills when I hear about it, and I was part of it. So that young person probably, and I say probably, might not have been successful in an apartment off Broad Street, right? Or in a cul-de-sac somewhere, only because they didn't have that feel. ILA, independent living apartments, are unsupervised programs. But because we're on a campus and we have 24-hour staffing for other programs, it's still that intensive more feel. So, but then again, we don't do necessarily well with a kid who has like smoking marijuana all the time, because we have kindergarten kids on our campus during the day and it just can't smell like weed on campus, to be honest with you, right? Where that's okay now in apartments. Like you're gonna smell that on people's balconies, but that's just not our kid necessarily. And no judgment on that, by the way. It's just not our kid because we're a free campus, because of our other programs, and not because of the legality piece behind it. So, but I think that's who we are in a nutshell. We've been doing this 178 years, and so a long time we've been in the group home and residential child welfare space. So, and there's room for more and for more collaboration.
I appreciate that. The collaboration, I think, is great. So I hope that we can create that, not just in Richmond, but maybe broaden it and create a bigger group. And then we have Brian from UMFS.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to speak on UMFS's Child and Family Healing Center. We have many other programs that work with kids in foster care or not in foster care, but I'll focus on the residential because that's what I do and it's what I've done for 26 years now. So we are what you call a PRTF, or a psychiatric residential treatment center. We are the highest level of care when it comes to providing that therapeutic environment. We are a locked facility on an open campus. So when I describe it that way, some people don't understand. Most residentials are locked down and everything is in the same building. Like you don't walk outside to go other places. But our campus is an open campus. It's kind of like a mini college or maybe a prep school. Kids are walking outside all day long. They got to walk outside to go to school, to go to the cafeteria, to go to the gym, to sit outside and do recreational activities, or just playing basketball or skateboarding or things like that. Our primary target is 11 to 17. On occasion, we are able to work with 18-year-olds, and that requires us to go through a variance process at DBHDS. It would also mean that child is in foster care. So we work with kids in foster care as well as kids that are still in custody of parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, kinship, however their situation is, as long they can either be in DSS or not. Our program, very clinical in nature. Each child has a therapist where they are seen at minimum 3 times a week for therapy. They also get 3 times a week group therapy. They get weekly family therapy if not more than that. And we also really encourage the families to take part of our family engagement program and process. We have a family support partner that works with us full time. She reaches out and contacts family on the day of admission and works with them all the way through discharge, and actually a lot of times even after discharge, following up with the families to see how things are going. What do they need? Do they need more referrals or different? Do they need to get in contact with our therapist again? Anything that they would need. She really helps parents with the process of going through what some of us seem to forget sometimes, is that it's really traumatic to have to place your child in a residential treatment center, knowing that you are going to leave and you might not see them again for a week. That's kind of her process, is to kind of ease that as much as possible with families, and also acknowledge that it is a very traumatic process to go through. We also provide recreational therapy. So our kids are getting recreational therapy, I think, daily, 6 days a week. We also got a grant recently, which I was pretty excited about, where we've collaborated with a community partner to do music therapy and art therapy, in addition to all the other therapies that we are providing for our kids. Let's see what else. So Chris used to work at UMFS. Am I missing anything, Chris?
You have an evidence-based practice, the collaborative problem solve.
Excellent, thank you. Yes, yeah. So our residential program does follow CPS, or collaborative problem solving. Again, our focus is not trying to necessarily stop behaviors. It's to educate, teach, support kids, learn new ways to problem solve situations so that the behaviors change. Again, residentials can put point systems in place and phase systems that will prevent behaviors for a period of time. But we have found that if it's not, if you're using a point system, the behavior change is not sustainable. It doesn't last after they leave residential treatment. So again, the focus is teaching and learning and understanding that the child is always doing the best that they possibly can with the resources and abilities that they have at the moment. We've also built in a process, and we use Circle of Courage. If you haven't heard of it, I would encourage you to take a look at it. It's also a trauma-informed approach. Basically, put in the school systems first, but we, as a group, the clinical team at CFHC, has incorporated that into our daily living within the residential program. That's it.
That's a lot. You guys are giving a lot of good information here. Like I said, I'm learning along with everybody, I think, today. So I don't know if we want to ask any questions about that topic before we move to the next one. Any of our volunteers have any questions, comments?
Saw somebody put a question in the chat.
Oh, I didn't see that. School's handled. Yeah, and school is actually the next topic. So I guess maybe we just segue into the next topic, and that might get answered. If not, we can address it. So I guess we go through the same pattern we were before. So start with DePaul. How is education handled for you? And I know it's a little different with ages being different. So
yeah, it definitely depends. I should start by saying that we're very much a client-driven agency. So when a young person identifies that they do want to go to community college, that's at the top of our list of goals for working with them, because they've identified it as something that they want to pursue. We're also an agency that wants to, I guess, make space for different types of education. So that's not always traditional, university or community college. It could be a technical school like K-Tech here in Charlottesville, a trade school. We're also very much encouraging of self-learning. There's a young adult in our program that's currently pursuing a lash class because they're super interested in cosmetology. So that's something that we wanted to help them obtain. We also have an 18-year-old who is still finishing high school. So we wanted to ensure that they could stay in their previous placement in Albemarle County schools. So we ensured that we worked together with DSS to ensure that their placement didn't change. Even though our location for our independent living program is in Charlottesville City, in the Charlottesville City school system, that's where they would access those schools. They were already set up in ROTC and they were on the soccer team. We wanted to make sure that we supported those connections. They're important to, you know, maintaining normalcy, maintaining friendships, natural supports in the community. Those things matter a lot to us at DePaul. So we wanted to make sure that we did everything we could to make sure that he had transportation access. So if he missed his taxi in the morning, it's up to one of our staff members to reach out or make sure that they text us and say, hey, I actually need to ride to school today. So that's something that we support with as well. Vani, any other thoughts on education?
Yeah, so I meet individually with each of the youth to kind of gauge what their dreams are in life. And a lot of them don't really have realistic views of career pathways. So I just work with them to find out what their interests are. And if they don't have a dream, maybe work on that together, just picture their future life and then find a pathway to get them there. And I also want to add that I've seen how vital the youth relationships are with their CASA volunteers. Sometimes it's really, y'all are sometimes the only adult in their life who is there because you choose to be, not because it's your job. So I've just seen how special that can be, and just having positive role models and a support system through CASA is so special. And one of the CASA workers I've seen is up to this point has been the only person in one of our young adults' lives who has been encouraging her toward education. So it's really special to have you guys as that one encouraging adult who chooses to be there for them. It's really, really special.
Could not echo that enough. I think apart from that, it's the traditional case management services through education, individualized skill building sessions that we have with them, whether that's through their case manager here at DePaul or their skill builder, Vani at DePaul. We also have monthly group sessions where we encourage our young adults to attend, get to know each other, and we work through a group topic of their choice or something that we've identified as a need. Previous group sessions have included, of course, holiday themed. It might be Friendsgiving in the kind of Thanksgiving holiday season. But we've also worked through personal safety, learning how to use a fire extinguisher. Gosh, the list could go on and on. So if y'all have questions, please feel free to reach out. I think that's the only thing I can think of right now as far as education is concerned. So I'm gonna pass it on.
And Christina?
Okay. So for education, just the oldest that they can come in is at 17. They're in high school. And so right now we actually have 4 youth finishing out their senior year. 1 virtual, 1 in night school, and 2 in day school. And so most of the time we try to keep them at their home school that they're originally coming from, just to keep that sense of stability for them. Especially since they've already been so used to being moved around from placement to placement. So I know 1 is virtual from like Fredericksburg right now. And they're finishing their senior year out. And so we make sure that all of our staff go to their graduations. The other 1 is night school, and all of our kids are graduating this year as seniors. So that's just something that we're just so happy because, as you know, a lot of you, they burn out easily. And so they're kind of like, sometimes they just don't stick with it. And so the fact that they came to us, which is a whole nother placement, a whole nother move for them, a whole nother thing to readjust to, and they still were able to stay in school is a big accomplishment. And so the other two, they kind of transferred from their local DSS and came into a local high school within the area. And so the bus comes and picks them up in the neighborhood. And actually wrong, it's 5 kids in school. So and another one transports through DSS. DSS has arranged for their transportation to pick them up every morning and bring them back to their home every evening. So we definitely make sure that transportation to and from school and that they're able to finish their school year out is definitely first priority.
And I guess, Christopher?
Yeah, we have like, excuse me, the others. It really is dependent on that young person's need, but anyone who comes to us who might still be in high school and in our group homes who might be in middle school, and we do have some kids who come in elementary, they typically go to the public schools in the area. Our bus comes right on the campus and picks them up. It has forever. There are schools, there's 2 high schools in our immediate area. One of them, the young person can actually go to school and speak Spanish the entire day. And that's not a barrier. We get a lot of kids from Catholic Charities, and we get kids from all over the world, but we utilize that as a resource a great deal, is that one high school. You might guys know this, but anyone who comes in high school who's in DSS custody has to go through a best interest determination meeting, a bid meeting, and that's for young people who are in the public school systems. But we also have a private day school on our campus. You know, Brian will speak to that as well. And so any young person who has an IEP, an individual education plan that says private day, for any one of many reasons, could attend our kindergarten through senior year on our campus. We have young people in our ILA as well who do that to complete their schooling. And they're allowed to. 18 years old starts to get a little tricky around them being in a private day school, but there are possibilities because they're in DSS custody at that point. And again, speaking to like Brightpoint and Reynolds colleges, those are the community colleges that are right in our area. And the bus comes and stops at each one of them. The public bus stops out front of our campus, which is great. We also have young people who drive on our campus, which is crazy to me, but they do. And they have scooters and they have cars and they have electric bikes and everything else, which is a little change for me on our campus when we added the young adults, that they were able to do that just for my own purposes and theirs, I think. But we have young people too who are at Goodwill Industries, and they are at the Workforce Development Center, and they are at HVAC and plumbing and electrical at all the vocational schools in the area. We do offer culinary arts as part of our school on our campus. And we also have a wood shop on our campus. We don't currently have a teacher for that, but we do typically have wood shop that we offer vocational. We have young people also who go to other private day schools in the area who have vocational, including veterinary sciences and all those kind of things too. But it's a myriad of different ways. Some of them are on computers in their townhomes going to school, right? And that's what's worked best for them. And because of their school district or because of the IEP, it's restrictive. And so that is what we've done. And we offer them tutoring and any other resources we can at that point, because we want them to have that interaction as well. That social learning and that emotional intelligence is just as important, if not more important, than intellectual intelligence. So from public school all the way to private day in college on our campus.
And Brian?
All right, so in order for me to move forward, I got to go back a minute. Our residential program is typically fully funded by Medicaid. It's where the education program is not. Most of you are probably aware that in order for a child to access the private day schools in Virginia, that there needs to be involvement with a FAP team, either through DSS or a CSP or an education rep, or sometimes even a DJJ rep. So all of our kids are involved in that FAP team process in order to receive funds for our private day school, which is called Charter House School. Charter House School is unique in that it is a residential school as well as a private day school open up to the community. So we have students coming in from all over the state, the Charlottesville area, I think some Williamsburg area, a lot of Chesterfield, Henrico, Richmond, but it does get spread out, and they will transport kids in on buses or private taxis and things like that. Our residential kids go to a section of the school, which is brand new. It just opened this year, where there are 10 classrooms. 6 of them are kind of designated for our residential kids, with a giant recreation space. We offer all the core subjects that a child would need. We are licensed by DOE. So the credits that they're earning within our program are credits that will transfer out to other schools. They are also able to graduate from Charter House School if they're at that point in their education. Like I said, we offer all the core classes. And I think that this residential school is a little bit different than most, but they offer art classes, music classes, other vocation classes, cosmetology, technology. We are in the process of having a $250,000 greenhouse built on campus. It's going to be a hydroponic greenhouse. And our students and residential kids will be able to access that as part of their education and programming in residential. I would also say that a lot of times the kids that I get in residential, the primary focus is the mental health and behavior health. That is why they are with us. They are just not safe to be in the community and get that same level of treatment. But at UMFS, there's no one priority. We believe that education is just as important as all of the residential clinical interventions. And we encourage our kids and families to seek out as much of those vocational classes or alternative classes that they can, because we know how important those are.
Thank you. Thank you all for all of the
Yeah.
educational pieces for your programs. Any questions on education from volunteers? Okay. So the last topic is just, our young adults face different challenges than things that maybe our younger kids in foster care do. So what are the challenges that youth face that you have seen? And how does your staff work to support them? And we'll go through the same order as before, I guess.
Bonnie, did you want to touch on this to start, and then I'll follow up with some of my own notes?
Sure. So I would say some of the challenges are continuing with the education example, lack of exposure to their opportunities, like even just seeing what a college campus looks like, just knowing kind of what it would be like, what it would look like to be in college or to pursue whatever career they want. So lack of exposure to those opportunities and lack of positive role models. Just someone to guide them through what to expect with the next step in life, and encourage them and believe in them. Someone just to be by their side through it all. I would say that's a really important piece that many of our youth are missing, that CASA could really fill.
Thank you, Bonnie. Those are all extremely valid points, and I don't think I would add anything to them or change them. I think the other piece that I would note about our program is that we are not a 24/7 on-site staff. We do have an on-call service that provides support 24/7, 365. But that means that our young people in our program, when accepted, they need to have a certain level of independence when they come to us. And so we're kind of the guiding force in supporting them through our independent living program and their steps towards independence. That said, We find quite often that we work through building healthy relationships and healthy decision-making. Because of, like Vonnie said, that lack of exposure to consistency, to what healthy adult living looks like. That's what a lot of our work looks like. We also face a lot of addiction, drug use in our young people. Given what they've been exposed to in life, it's not uncommon for our young people to face these hard things. So we do have a community-based clinician on site that our young people are able to access and to use as a support. But oftentimes it's working with our young people to seek substance abuse counseling when needed and when appropriate. I think I've also, I don't know if anyone else realized this in their work with young people, but COVID it created what I think of as a new norm. And so having lived abroad the last couple of years, I've realized that I've come back to viewing young people in a very different way. There's not nearly the amount of drive towards seeking education, towards seeking what we would potentially view as normalcy. So there's a healthy amount of chaos in our young people. And so our work often involves figuring out what the day-to-day looks like. And that is not always easy. So we're very thankful to work with you all at CASA to figure out what that looks like for our young folks. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for that piece. Leah, I don't know if we'll have an opportunity to wrap up at the end, but I do want to note that we do have a program flyer for our independent living program here at DePaul. So if we do have any interested parties, I'm happy to pass that on to Leah before the end of the day today. Thanks.
Yeah, I could definitely pass that along. Anything from any of the programs, if you would like to share.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then just going down, Christina had to step out. She is transporting a youth, I think. So we'll go to Christopher.
Hey, unique to our young people, I think, is that when you see them in a grocery store or when you walk up on them, they could present as very intelligent, nodding a lot, trying to get through the conversation with you, and then leave that conversation not knowing a thing about what you said. Right? And that's from resilience, and that is from overcoming trauma, and that is from just get me through this conversation and please leave me alone so I can find the bus. Right? And they can't find the bus, and they're not going to ask you to find the bus. But then they're going to come back and say that they missed work because they didn't find the bus. That's infuriating, right? That can be very tiring. And that is not intentional. And like Brian was speaking to the collaborative problem solving model, it's a lack of skill. And, you know, and I spoke to having children of my own. Our own society has said that my children can be on my insurance until the age of 26, right? That is kind of an age of new reason, if you will. We know brain development doesn't even start until then, longer, right? And so they're not even able to make informed decisions for themselves until well past fostering futures is over. And if you know what our children have endured, our young people have endured, just compound that by their circumstances, right? Just think about where they're at. And so they come across very lucid, they come across very aware, but what they're not picking up is profound. And so having that same conversation that you're in a room and you're spinning, you got to keep having the same conversation at all. And so also know too that our program, one of our homelessness programs is LGBTQ exclusively. It's a free program, and it started as a partnership with the Richmond Side by Side, an advocacy group. And so if there's a placement needed for somebody who is on LGBTQ2IA plus there, that there's a space that's specific for them and healthy for them, and they can see their doctors that are LGBTQ friendly, and they can see employers that are, and so we have those resources available to them, and we know the guidance counselors to talk to and which ones not to talk to, and those kind of things within the school systems. We also know too that what's uniquely qualified is that when we would call the police, they're not going to call them. When we would go to the emergency room, they're not going to the emergency room because it costs too much, and that's what they've been taught, right? And so allowing them to have that resource and to say, you can trust the police, call the police. Like, I'm not having a police officer come here. I'm like, you were just, someone violated you, someone stole something from you. But they've been not taught that, right? And so our go-tos are not their go-tos. And so whatever your conventional wisdom around those things and the support systems we have is not their conventional. They will grocery shop at 7-Eleven and Wawa and be completely happy with it. They will, right? And so, and some of that's okay at Sheets now and Wawa, by the way, right? Some of it's normative, and you can get fruit there, and you can get other things there, and sandwiches to go. But teaching them the things that you just took for granted that you might have been parented, and they're just not parent privileged like many of us.
And Brian, if you want to share your thoughts.
Okay, so again, I'd like to say that our residential program, really 11 to 17, and intense therapy-driven treatment. So our focus and what we experience aren't typically what your 18, 19, 20-year-olds that are living in IL programs and those kinds of things. What we want to focus on and what we find that really helps our children settle in to start working on things is we work very hard to create an environment of belonging and connectedness, whether that is to other kids on your suite, whether that might be to staff members, parents, other guardians. Excuse me, I got sorry, I have to end real fast. Sorry. I'll come back.
I think, as you can see, I think things come up in the worlds of working with youth and young adults. Needs arise, and we go with it. So do we have any questions while we're waiting for him to be able to come back to us? And I saw some good things in the chats that I can bring up as well. So we did have a question about any accommodations and resources for youth who might have mobility needs. I didn't know if any programs want to speak to that.
Sure. At DePaul Community Resources, the apartment complex that we rent through, their facility itself has ramps where ground floor apartments are accessible via ramp. Our independent living program office is also accessible because there's no stairs that are needed to access that apartment specifically. I don't think, Vonnie, I don't think there's elevators on site though. Ramps, yes. Elevators, no. Yeah. Okay.
So Brian, a question was just asked if programs had any accommodations for youth who might have mobility needs. So
yeah, so our school has a nursing station. We employ nurses. It's wheelchair accessible. We do have a program specifically designed. Sarah Headley Boyd's the principal, and she would kill me for not knowing more about this specific program. Chris might be able to give a 5 or 10 second description of it, just because, again, he has worked there so long. But yes, we do have and make modifications and accommodations to whatever the needs of our students might be.
were there other questions from volunteers about other topics or? And there was something in the chat about sending out, the websites for these programs, and I can certainly do that. I can also put together a list of these programs and some others and maybe put them on the volunteer section of our site. So I'll try to get some resources out to folks as well.
I'd also say this too, is that a lot of us providers attend conferences throughout the year, multiple conferences. I'm at the conference the next 3 days. I think Brian probably is too. There's one in Lynchburg that I would strongly recommend for all of you. It's called the James River Community Coalition, the JRCC, and it's on June 14th. And I recommend that not because I'm affiliated with it, and so there are really good people who are putting on that on. That'll probably have 35 or 50 different providers who are present with a table, right? And that is a rich resource. It also will probably have 200 plus participants who are there. And it's a cool day. There's food trucks and there's all kinds of stuff. But there's training for there. And, our focus in this coming year is kinship for sure. And what that looks like, that doesn't mean living with families necessarily, it just means a connection, right? And so the state has a big push when it comes to kinship. But the JRCC is a big one for you guys. If not, there's one in Harrisonburg in July as well. And that's the Shenandoah Valley one. But Leah, I can send out a list of like 15 or 18 conferences throughout the state and send that to everybody. And that has their tentative dates and their contact people, and then providers as well. You can put yourselves on their list so they send you those invites so you can be at those places. But also for any volunteers who want to go and learn more, there's plenty of opportunity to do that.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Those are maybe not all on our radar, so definitely would like to see those. Any other questions or thoughts? Trying to look in the chat, see if there's anything else.
Erin, I saw you raise your hand. You're more than welcome to speak out.
Oh, yes.
My name is Erin Monroney, and I'm a Piedmont CASA. So much of this information is new to me and very interesting. If a CASA were still connected to someone in one of your programs, as you've indicated as possible, would the CASA potentially connect with and meet the person in the program at the facility or at a place of choice on the part of the person in the facility? Like, in other words, where physically do people make connections that feels comfortable and appropriate to the young people in the programs?
That's a great question. Our young people are comfortable in different spaces. So whether that's their own apartment, that's perfectly fine. We kind of leave it up to our young adults to choose where they'd like to meet you all. We do also have, of course, our office on site, which has a really comfy lounge room. So you can grab a couple sofa seats in the back room. There's lots of privacy. So there is that option as well. But some folks just like to have lunch with their CASA volunteers. It's a chance for them to get out in the community, have some food, and connect with you guys over whatever you guys are working on for the day. Vani, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, since we are client centered, it's really up to the youth. We don't, yeah, that would be up to you and the youth.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and I would say, DePaul has a little courtyard in the middle. It's a nice outdoor space on pretty days, but again, I think they said it best. It's really up to the youth, and they all know what they're most comfortable with. And every program probably has a different spot that might be good for those sorts of visits too.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions?
I would say, for us, we want people to come and visit them in their apartment if that's what they're comfortable with. Housewarming gifts, awesome. Like we would anywhere else when somebody gets a new apartment, right? Any of those kind of things are always appreciated. Certainly meeting them out in the park, or come and swim with them or use a tennis court. That's fine with you guys. That's fine with us. It is truly their neighborhood, and so much like that, you'll see young people around, and you'll see older people around too. So sometimes they just want to meet at a restaurant or a local park, or many times it's right on our campus walking around. And they're adults, right? And at that age, 18 to 21 years old, they're adults. They have visitation policy, and you got to leave by a certain time, but it's their place to have people over.
Thank you.
Oh, well, if there are no other questions, I really appreciate everyone being here today. Oh, there's another question that just popped in. How are independent housing choices made? So who's the decision maker there? It's a good question. And it kind of varies, but I don't know if you want to take a shot at that one.
I would say before COVID, young people would probably visit or vet 3 or more ILA programs, right? They'd go and see them. They'd walk into an apartment. They would go grocery shopping with them. They'd spend the day with some young people. And they'd look at the neighborhood. And then during COVID, it was kind of like, well, just read a flyer and then choose that, right? And so some of them are really influenced by the social worker. And some of them are, I like this place as a young person because I saw a roommate of mine that I had in a TSC 6 years ago, right? And young people leave my environment and go to DePaul. They leave my environment and go to my Pathways Forward, just like any other apartment or any other schooling environment, right? Sometimes it's not a good fit, and they're not getting their needs met where they are. And it's personality things, there's safety things. And so unfortunately, these kids sometimes move between the 8 of us that are doing this. And sometimes they're homeless in between and couch surfing, and they come back more appreciative sometimes, and sometimes it's just part of their journey. And so, but typically it's the young person who makes that final decision. They are the adult, it's their voice and choice to do so. There's some influence there by people who care about them. Some of them want to be in the environment that they grew up with, and some of them said, no, I've been in Virginia Beach my whole life, I am going to Lynchburg. Right? So it all depends.
Yeah, we say that a lot here. It all depends. Yeah.
It all depends.
Yeah. And I do think if they have a Bridges coach, the Bridges coaches try to help them connect and see different places and have a little more input in those decisions. But I think Christopher said it right. It depends, the social worker or the kid who is kind of guiding them to the choices.
I've noticed something in recent months. Our independent living program does not have any roommate situations. So that's often a determining factor as well for folks that don't want a roommate. It can be challenging to live with another young adult. So our program simply offers 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartments, and that is the option that they have. If the young adult is still 17 years old and they're still under the guardianship of the Department of Social Services for their locality, they can certainly tour our program and we can show them the apartments that we have available. But in the end, yeah, it is their decision. And we love that it's kind of up to them. They get to feel it out for themselves. I love that. Bye, Brian. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they all had great input on that question. And I do think the more that youth know, the better informed decision they can make for themselves, what they need. Some it's about they want to have a pet or they want to live in Richmond versus Charlottesville or vice versa. So yeah, I think it really is a lot of factors, and it really is dependent on our youth, like so many of the other choices they make. Yeah, I think I just appreciate you all being here today and the questions and all of the information. Like I said, I was learning some new things about some programs I've even worked with before. So it's great to hear what you all are doing. And thanks to our CASAs for all they do as well. So I hope you all have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll be sending out any information that you want me to share, or I'll find, at least send the links so you can get more information about each of the programs. So have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Leah. It's good to see you. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.